Okay, I have two bowls, half bowls of lab-created corundum for a ruby that I want to cut. This one I got many years ago from Jeff Graham, and this one I got from Joe H. I'm not sure which one's going to cut a better colored ruby. So I'm going to cut one, and then maybe later I'll cut the other one and just see, compare them, so I get knowing for the future which one cuts what color of a ruby when we're done. There's a lot of material here. I just need a small piece for the project I'm working on for BOPIE. Again, the way these are produced is it's a whole. This would be 1/2 of the boule. Because of the pressure inside, they're usually split for corundum. For spinel, often I can get a whole boule without it being split. But this is the way corundum is produced in the lab. And sometimes things go wrong, and or right, as you might say. So this piece of pink corundum, pink sapphire, I got many years ago. It was a deformed lab project that went awry and formed a blob instead of a boule. And so I bought it up. Again, I got this from Jeff Graham also many years ago. And eventually I'll cut it. What I want to do with this, just so you guys know for a future kind of a spoiler alert, is I want to cut as big as possible a piece, because you can't cut this corundum in a big piece if you get a normal boule. You're not going to have the size. So this lab experiment gone wrong is going to allow me to make a gigantic piece of pink sapphire lab created. So if you have any ideas of what design I should use, what type of design I should use on this piece, please let me know in the comments. It keeps sitting in my box of rough, in my to be cut someday list, and eventually I need to cut it. So again, the goal here is going to be make a large stone, a lot of yield, because you can't. If I would have bought pink sapphire in a half bowl, I would have ended up with something this size or this size. And then I'll cut a piece off of one of these and cut our corundum, and then maybe later I'll cut my other piece of rough and cut another corundum and compare the two stones. I believe I'll cut the darker of these bowls for BOPIE, and maybe later I'll come back and cut the cranberry colored one, and then compare the two and let BOPIE compare them to see which one we like better for lab created ruby for the future. Now for a design. I have several rectangular or emerald shaped designs that I've cut before, including golden steps, the standard oblong step cut with cut corners, and ideal emerald 133. I've cut each of these designs before, and I like them all. And I previously made videos of cutting these designs, so if you want to see the designs, you can refer back to those videos. I think I'll use Gem Cut Studio or the GCS computer program to evaluate the performance of each of these designs, and then select the design that gives the best face-up brightness for corundum, ruby. In the interest of time, I won't go through the steps here in showing you how to use GCS to evaluate the performance of a design for a particular refractive index, as I've made tutorial videos on this feature of GCS before. If you want to learn how the tilt performance feature of GCS or the other features work, here's a link to a GCS playlist that I created where I link all the GCS tutorials that I know of from YouTube, whether I created them or somebody else. The winning design is the standard oblong step cut with cut corners design. This design gives the best performance when evaluated by GCS for ruby corundum. Now, everyone may have their own view of what best performance means. There was even a recent discussion in one of the gem cutting groups on Facebook that I belong to about measuring the performance of a gemstone from the bottom. For me, I keep things simple, so I am just looking at face-up performance. What I mean is, what brilliance and sparkle would you see in a gemstone if you are looking down at the top of the gemstone in the light, kind of holding the stone in your hand? If you have a different criteria, great. There is no right or wrong answer, and with GCS, there's no shortage of options available to analyze the performance of GCS. That's why they call it the tilt performance. Here's the design I'll be cutting along with the cutting instructions. If I cut this design correctly, I'll get about 65% brightness or sparkle face up. More if I tilt the stone slightly either way, and that's pretty awesome. So now that I've selected a design, I'll trim off a piece of rough from this half boule, and we can start faceting. I previously made a video called All About Dops, so I won't show you how to dop the stone here. Here's the link. Okay, for our beautiful piece of ruby, we need to put it into our Ultratech, and for this design, what we want is at the 96 tooth, of our 96 index, we want the stone to go in so that the long side, either side, is up or down. So that's how we'll set it. So once we set it in there, just setting it by eye, about like that. And then we tighten the set screw and we'll be ready to start cutting our ruby. Okay, for our ruby, I'm going to use a topper, a much more coarser topper, because corundum is very hard. I used to be worried too much about causing internal structure damage when I used rougher laps to rough in my preform my stone, but I think with corundum I'm going to be okay. So I've got a brand new topper. Topper is just a thin lap. It's kind of, not that well made, but doesn't need to be at the rougher levels. You can get by with the topper. So this is a 100 grit topper. Now, this one comes from Kent Supplies, but you can get them anywhere. Chinese manufacturers or Etsy, eBay, Amazon. So I'm going to use the 100 grit topper on my corundum. I do have a 60 grit lap that I bought when I first started. One of the cutters talked me into it. It was a bad idea. That lap is too rough. It does cause internal damage. I have damaged stones by using it, damaged quartz and other gemstones, so I don't use 60 grit. I would not recommend 60 grit. But for corundum, I'm going to try this 100 grit. There's no internal inclusions right now in this lab-created ruby, so we end up with some internal issues later, we'll know that the 100 grit was too rough for corundum, but I think we'll be okay. So to use tauper, you have to put it on a master lap, and I use my ceramic lap, another bad idea of a lap to buy in my opinion, but it makes a great master lap because it's the flattest lap I have. You just put the topper on there and ready to cut at the 100 grit level. Okay, so for our first use of our 100 grit topper, I want to show you how aggressive this lap is and why I wouldn't use it for most gemstone rough other than corundum. You can see how that really made quick work out of the corundum. So it's a very aggressive lap, and I'll continue to preform this ruby with the 100 grit topper. Okay, our 100 grit diamond topper lap made quick work out of preforming this piece of dark red ruby corundum. So now I'll move to probably a 300 series topper and then the 600, and keep working on the pavilion of this ruby. Okay, I've gone over our ruby with 13,000 grit diamond on a batt lap to preform it. Now I have not done the 3 rows of corner facets, the girdle, and then these first 2 tiers up the side all the way around. So that's the G3, the P8, and the P7 tiers. Because I wanted to get the lines of each step lined up. Now that they're lined up the way I want them, now I will probably polish them and then come back and cut those corners. But I could cut the corners now, so I think I'll go ahead and polish these facets, then I'll be done with them. Okay, I finished polishing the pavilion, bottom half of our corundum, except I haven't done the corner cuts yet. I saved those because I wanted to make sure all my lines, this line, this line, and this line, all lined up all the way around. And now I will cut my P7, which will make a little point. It'll be on this tier, it'll go up and make a little point like a triangle and just touch this top row. And then I'll do the P8, which will line up with the P7 on both these sides to make a triangle going up again. And then the G3, the girdle, to make sure all those lines line up. So other than that, the pavilion's done. So I'll go back and cut the 4 corners right now. And I did polish this with 50,000 grit diamond, but not on a batt lap. I have 2 zinc laps that I had resurfaced, and John at Gear Loose, he'll resurface all your laps for you. And so I had them resurfaced. They were very, very corroded, and they were just sitting around in storage. So I read at one website that zinc laps work really well with corundum, so I wanted to give it a try. So 50,000 grit diamond on a zinc lap worked great in polishing these up. Okay, I finished polishing the bottom half pavilion of our ruby, so now I'll transfer the stone in my transfer fixture and attach the dop to the other half of the stone so we can cut the crown of our gemstone. Okay, I finished going over the top of our lab created ruby with a 12M lap, which is about a 1500 grit, and it's all preformed, all ready to go now. I'll use the 3000 grit diamond on a batt lap, probably after that a 15,000 grit diamond, and then I'll probably go to the 100K diamond on a batt lap. The stone's coming along, it's looking very, very nice color, And here's, so you can recall, this is the half bowl that we used to start with. So the color is coming out quite nicely as we cut it. So I guess you can't really tell the color by looking at the bowl. It kind of depends on the final stone. So I'll continue to cut our man-made ruby. Okay, the way I season my 100 grit batt lap with the 100,000 grit diamond is I use the pandemonium from Gear Loose, and I just start a slow rotation. Just put a little bit on. Then I use the snake oil, and I put 2 drops or 3 drops, and I work it all in. Then I take a piece of paper towel and I wipe a lot of it off. And I'm ready to go. So I'm just going to run it at probably a slower than normal pace, probably 400 RPM. Just lower the armature until it just touches. You can see the light will start slightly blinking. Got just a little bit of touching, and gently go over it, the stone, about 4 or 5 times, and then I'll check it. And when that should give me the polish I need, and if not, I'll go over it a little bit more. But that's how I do my polishing with 100,000 grit diamond. So it's this facet here that I've polished up with the 100,000 grit diamond. There's no scratches left on it. And now I'll work through the rest of the stone with the 100,000 grit diamond on a batt lap. Okay, I've finished polishing the upper half of the ruby. Have to set it up now to cut the table and polish the table, and then we'll be done. Okay, I finished polishing the table of our man-made ruby, so I'll put it in the acetone, remove the stone from the dop, and then we'll weigh it, measure it, and send it off to BOPIE. The standard oblong step cut with cut corners is a classic gem cutting design that has been used for ages. It is appropriate for cutters of all skill levels, and a brand new cutter could very well cut this design as their first gem cutting project. Personally, I recommend to use a standard round brilliant as the first design to cut, but I do know gem cutting instructors who have their new cutter students cut a rectangular step shape as their first project. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. The final gemstone turned out great, and it has a lot of sparkle. Hope you likes it. I do believe I will cut a piece of my cranberry corundum bowl in the near future using this same design, just so I can compare it and BOPIE can compare it and look at the colors of the 2 stones and see which one we prefer for a standard ruby lab created. So stay tuned. Let me know what you think of this design, and let me know what color of lab created ruby is your go-to color. And as always, happy fastening, everyone.